Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Brian Parker up at Frostburg State. Welcome, Coach.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. We were just chatting, and I'm familiar with Frostburg, having driven 68 East and West many times between home and college, but I'm sure we'll introduce the school to some folks here today, which will be great. But first, let's start talking a little about recruiting. You guys had a phenomenal season, NCAA tournament appearance, but now that the season's over, I'm guessing you're hitting the recruiting trail hard. So when it comes to recruiting, or when do you really start talking to players? Are you predominantly talking to seniors right now, or is this class close to done and you're focused on the juniors? What does that look like for you guys?
So thanks for having me. And the move to Division II has been awesome. I'd be happy to talk to you about that. But what that has done now that we have a scholarship budget is accelerated things a little bit for us. So we were normally in Division III, kind of finishing. Honestly, when we left Division III, we were finishing the recruiting cycle around Memorial Day, around the end of the school year, and we're usually not recruiting many seniors. We're usually securing verbal commitments, before the summer at the end of the junior year. And so now we've just kind of backed up a bit. So obviously the magic day for everybody in Division I and II is June 15th. And so we are tracking sophomores and developing sort of a hot list for June 15th. And so we make those phone calls and emails and we get on their list, on right after June 15th. And we start really tracking what we would call, I don't want to say short thing, but obvious recruits that are clearly going to be good here. And we'll get visits as early as June and July and start making offers before those players even start their junior year. So we're recruiting really from that point over summer at the end of the sophomore year through middle of the junior year. We finished around Easter last year, which seems like it was a little late. I think that's kind of a pandemic effect that's still kind of lingering. But we're generally recruiting juniors from the summer until, spring break. For us is March. For them, it's usually around Easter and April. That's the latest we typically go. So we're a little ahead of the game probably for a lot of twos and threes, but I like it that way. I mean, we want to really recruit one player at a time and be as accurate in our evaluation as we can be. And now that we have scholarship money, we have to be a lot more careful, and frankly, the pressure on coaches with scholarships, I would argue, is to be much more accurate. I could tell 30 players I loved them in Division III, and you just tell me when you're ready. But you can't really do that with scholarships. You have to be a little bit more careful and make sure you stay on budget, and that you can't have offers out there for months and months. So there's a lot of different parameters that go into it. But we're right now getting ready to go to Raleigh for the North Carolina event that's there, and I've got. Literally, I appreciate this break because my inbox, I'll have 20 more emails when I get off this call with you. It's insane the number of, I wait, honestly, this is a kind of a tip for recruits. I wait to put my name on the list for these tournaments a lot so that I don't, get a lot of, emails a month ahead of time. I wait 3 or 4 days in advance to put my name in there. And that's what I did this time. And my emails just blown up.
So let's talk about that on the email front. So we're going to get off this call. You're going to go check your email, or maybe you'll wait till halftime of the next World Cup game to check your email. But when you do, what is something that is going to make you read that email or make you follow up with that player versus an email you're going to read that's just going to kind of get pushed to the side?
Well, obviously now in Division II, the first thing is their graduation year, right? We need to make sure that we can respond. So the the students younger than 15, what we would say 25s and below, right? This current sophomores and younger will get a particular kind of email that's been approved. That is, it basically says here are the rules and here's the standard reply, and we can watch players and obviously track them, and we like their schedule updates, when they send them out, but of course we can't really interact with them. In terms of obviously the 24s where we're focused, it's personal. You want to get a personal email. You want to get a dear Coach Parker email, that is not generic. It's so silly if there's multiple people in the two box. I mean, I still get some of those now and then. So at least, most people are at least hiding that it's a mass email. But the more personalized email you can write, the better. Know something about our school, about our program, about our staff. Obviously everyone's trying to gauge what is the real level of your interest. And so if the level of interest is high enough to know some things about us, mention some connection to our school, friends and family, alumni, whatever, that is obviously super, super helpful. You always, I'm sure you've covered the basics many times. Got to have the team name in there correct. Got to have the jersey. They should sign the email with their club team and uniform number every time. I just read an email today. Great email, no jersey number. So now I got to go find the right jersey number, make sure I have it right. It just takes extra time to confirm all that. So in some ways, the recruit can do some homework, but it gets my attention if they know who they're talking to.
Absolutely. Well, and you mentioned going to Raleigh. Are there other tournaments that are kind of must see TV? Things you set appointments to make sure you visit those tournaments?
So I think everyone knows probably who cares enough to watch these videos that there's a kind of a stratification in club soccer that has evolved over the years, and I think everybody knows that the best club soccer in the country probably is played at the ECNL events. The GA is fighting, to keep their clubs competitive and keep their events organized. They're doing a great job. It is sort of checkerboard pattern across the country where certain clubs, certain leagues are working better than others. But we will watch a player in any part of the country on any level team. I think the interesting thing about smaller clubs that don't have multiple teams is that they're going to have those elite players that end up on a top team because there is no second team, or maybe there is no elite club that's playing in a high level league in their area. So I think we go to the ECNL events to rub elbows with people, but we get the local ones. We're not going to Texas or California to recruit nationwide, frankly, as a regional state school. But we get emails from all over the place. To be honest with you, the biggest difference for us as a Division II school with scholarships now, in terms of recruiting volume, has been international players. I mean, I'm getting emails from internationals every day. The services that are promoting these players, our email has ballooned, and we don't really have special programs for international players here, so we're not really actively recruiting them very much.
Well, and that was going to be a question I had later, is on the international front. What about the transfer portal, especially now that you're Division II? Is that coming into play at all with what you're looking at recruiting?
So we do not like surf the portal, and look for kids. We would like to be, as a 4-year school, have players in a 4-year developmental process here. I've been here 20 years. There's no reason for us to sort of jumpstart our program and try to get kids out of the portal necessarily. What I am looking for in the portal are players we know, players that maybe we knew the first time around. Maybe the fit wasn't right for them at a different level, and so we might reach out to them. Honestly, in some cases, we're just providing advice and guidance and kind of seeing how they're doing. And just in case things aren't working out for you, let us know if we can help you in any way. But we're not allocating roster space or budget to transfers, really. We haven't had to do that, and that's not really our plan.
Okay. Well, what about camps? Do you guys run your own camps there at the school, or do you or your staff work other people's camps?
So that's a little bit of a sticking point for me. We did an ID camp years ago when it first became a thing, going back maybe 10 years. And we had a nice idea to combine with some other schools and run one at each campus. And we had 45 kids show up, and we liked about 5 of them. And so we cashed the checks for the other 40 kids, and I felt terrible about it, frankly. Like, you're going to spend money to find out you're not being recruited by a regional D3 back then. So I just don't like the way it's set up. I don't like the process. I don't think players should pay to visit campuses. They should not pay for an evaluation. I think it's our job to go out and watch players play with their club teams. They're already spending a fortune to play club soccer and go to events like the one in Raleigh. So shouldn't we go to those events and evaluate as many players as we can and give them accurate feedback? Now, when the clubs host events, like when the clubs themselves host events and invite coaches, we do like to participate in those because they're done on their schedule, when the club can actually organize it and get a high level of participation. So we will go visit clubs and train teams and do what I would call club-based, prospector ID events. And we'll continue to do those for clubs in our region that are often the ones that provide players to us.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Well, whether it's at a tournament or other games you're watching, or anything, highlight film, whatever, what's kind of your hierarchy of things that you're looking for in a player, whether that's on the field attributes or off the field stuff?
So technical competence, I think everyone knows you got to have players that can keep the ball and can strike a ball, use both feet, escape pressure, all the sort of checkbox things that are necessary. There's obviously also an athleticism that is a requirement. Um, I don't really recruit size and strength necessarily. I'd be happy to have a team full of little messy type players who are buzzing around with the ball. But it is hard to win games that way sometimes because you're going to run into big, strong teams that win high balls. So obviously you need to have a mix and need to have some ball winners in there. I think it's so unusual and just a curiosity how unwilling female players are to become good winning high balls. I mean, it's a stunning thing. When you go to a club game, if I go to Raleigh this weekend and I see even a smallish player just tracking and flying around and snapping headers into the goal, she's going to get my attention. It's amazing that is a trait that is highly valued and undertaught. And of course, we all understand the safety concerns, and learning it the right way is essential, of course. But striking long balls and receiving long balls is a massive thing. I think that a lot of coaches are looking for, in addition to all the requisites, of course, I just mentioned in terms of skill and athleticism.
Man, you just hit me right there in the feels. It's my daughter's team, and I'm gonna go see a high school varsity girls game tonight, and it's gonna be interesting to see how many of those aerial balls actually get one. So I'm
well
100%.
I was a high school coach for 7 years, and my best player was 5'2", but she had a 30-inch vertical, and her head would just pop up above all the other heads, and she would snap a corner in with her head, and she was the best player we had on the ground with the ball on the ground. But she would change the game with aerial balls, and it was significant. She was a conference player of the year in college.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, the good thing about the Frostburg State is probably that word state in terms of how much it costs to attend versus some of those private school price tags. Us parents, we tend to look at that first thing is, okay, coach, how much is this going to cost me? So I'm not holding you to any hard numbers here, but if you can just give me a brief overview of what is kind of the cost of attending Frostburg look like, how do academic scholarships fit in, what is the athletic scholarship piece now that you guys are in Division II? Just kind of give me an average of what somebody might be looking at if they come there.
Sure, I don't mind sharing. So we go right to the website if you want to check it out, right? We're
Sure.
$20K total for a Maryland student. That's room, board, tuition fees. That's your school bill. 2022, depending on housing choices. Our out-of-state students can pay a maximum of, they start at 34 if they live far away, but we have what a lot of schools have is sort of a regional tuition discount. So the Northern Virginia players and Pennsylvania players that we might recruit are in the 28 range to start. And then, of course, we are able to combine an athletic award with an academic award, and we try to get that left to pay number down to around 10 for Maryland kids and under 20 for out-of-state kids. So we can get them down to 15, 18 if they're out of state using a combination of athletic and academic awards. So we choose to sort of spread our scholarship budget around a bit. Honestly, we're not going for the 6-foot Germans like some people are, and on full rides, we don't have quite that kind of a budget or ambition, frankly, with internationals. But everyone on our team has a similar kind of scholarship, which honestly makes it kind of a non-issue. Everyone has a little piece of the pie, and so once they're here and they have that, it doesn't really change much, unless there's a change in family circumstances or some emergency. We don't evaluate and change numbers every year, like some schools might use incremental scholarships or whatever. We're not into that really. We want to be able to plan our budget over a 4-year cycle, and generally don't change those numbers too much. But everyone has kind of a similar scholarship here. That's the model we're using now. You might call me in 3 years and we have a 6-foot German on the roster, but right now we do not. And we get great kids in Maryland and Northern Virginia, and our sort of recruiting footprint in the Mid-Atlantic is loaded with good players.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you talked about the Mid-Atlantic. You guys are kind of up there in the western part of Maryland, and there's, like I said, folks probably not familiar with Frostburg. So let's learn a little bit more about the school. And like you said, you're an alum, so you've been there for a number of years, so you can give us probably some great insights. What are some really nice things about Frostburg that we may not know just by going through the website?
So, we're a regional state school, a small college town environment, one of those college towns that doubles in size when the students arrive, every fall. We're in the mountains of Western Maryland, but that's such a relative term. As I sit here, 2,000 feet elevation on campus. The mountains around us are not even 3,000. So we have a ski resort nearby that has about 800 feet of skiable terrain, and people out west will laugh at that, of course. Um, with the 14,000, 12,000 foot peaks they have out west. But it definitely it definitely feels like the mountains when you're here. We got hills around here and ski resorts, and the change of seasons is very noticeable here. The fall colors are awesome. We have a terrific turf stadium that at a lot of schools our size, of course, is used by most sports that use the rectangular field. So we share with men's soccer, of course, in field hockey and football. We just upgraded it with a fantastic stadium structure, VIP seating, and we have LED lights in there, and we have upgraded our turf, and we have a fantastic state-of-the-art locker room here. So moving to Division II has been awesome because we've cranked up the commitment to athletes, both in terms of resources, physical resources, and scholarship resources. And so, we're in kind of a high growth mode right now in athletics, and that change has been really fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, the other side of the coin is the academics, right? So, how do your student athletes really balance their studies with their sport activities, and what kind of support systems does the school have in place to help them out?
So one of the interesting things about moving up to Division II is that we are actually allowed to now fund and have student support personnel in the athletic department working directly with students, which has been awesome. Now, it's no surprise to probably people that will listen to this that women's soccer players are awesome. They're great students. We had a recruiting class last year. 8 of the 9 girls had 4.0s. The one girl had a 3.9, high school 3.9, and we joked how she had to get her act together. So it's a chicken and egg thing with soccer. I'm sure we could discuss at length, but most of our players, the light is on, so to speak, in terms of their commitment and motivation to do well in school. So our main thing, obviously, when they change to a college environment, is to just make sure they have good habits, right? We want to make sure we make them attend every class here. We make sure that they obviously are putting in study hours, and we require that of the first year players. Once they've sort of proven themselves as student athletes, as students, then we kind of lay off the sort of higher maintenance program in the spring semester. And by year 2, they're going to be mentors to, incoming freshmen the following year. One of the things I'm probably most proud of, in 21 years, we've lost 3 players here for academic reasons in 21 years. And I'm still not happy about those 3, frankly. So we had like a 317 GPA last year, which was frankly really high even for us. We usually shoot for 3.4, 3.5. So I'm happy to work with fantastic committed student athletes, and they do very well here. We were founded as a teachers college. Training teachers is still the best thing we do. We have a fantastic new nursing program and a state-of-the-art health sciences building that's coming online literally in like 5 weeks from now. So that nursing enrollment will really grow. A lot of our students are involved in human physiology, biology, but then the other third of our team could be doing almost anything. We've had art, business, communications, philosophy, English. We've had some lawyers, who did like political science and pre-law. So there's really nothing you can't do here and still play soccer. The girls know I live some distance from campus, so we never wake them up before classes. So we don't do a lot in the morning. We like to train in the early afternoon. We always like to train before dinner and get our session in before nightfall, which is nice. But we do have lights. We have night practices sometimes in preparation for night games. But I think it's a perfect environment where we can train in that Division I model. We have those 8-hour weeks where we can train the players in the off season. We can play real games in the spring, which is an awesome change. Probably the best change from Division III to Division II is being able to train the players much more and have those spring games. The girls want to play in the spring. We're all recruiting players who are playing 30 games in the spring and training twice a week, and they get to college, that's what they want to keep doing. So it's really nice that in the D2 model, we've been able to train the players more and just get more growth and more value for them out of that spring experience, which has been awesome. Of course, in the summer, everyone's on their own when we encourage them to play on local teams. A lot of adult teams have popped up all over the country, so that's been awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the team itself. Is there a roster size that you find is ideal that you're trying to hit every year?
So we say 25 to 28. 32 is our absolute max. We have 32 lockers, and we can train 32 players and equip and travel 32 players. We do not do a travel roster. Everyone's on one team. We don't do developmental teams or JV teams, whatever you call them. So last year we did start at 32. This year, because we had a small senior class, we started around 26. I think we had 26, 25. So that was a perfect number with just 2 goalkeepers. So I think next year our projection is 29, 30. I really don't want to go much higher than that. I'm glad I'm at a school that isn't requiring me to really, do more than that. We don't want to do a travel roster. We don't want to run a JV team here. I'm hoping that doesn't ever happen to us, but it is nice that everyone on our team does everything every day and travels to every game, and I like it that way a lot.
No, that's tremendous. Well, what about staff? How big is your staff? What role does everybody play?
So I'm fortunate enough to have a full-time assistant position, and then I have a third coach as a GA position. So right now our full-time assistant is our goalkeeper coach, Erica Keel, and she's got great experience and has been awesome. The GA right now is also helping out with facilities, but she's a recent player, who's also been awesome as sort of that liaison role, with the players and really kind of helping the players. She helps with our study hall, and we all do scouting together and do a lot of recruiting together. So that's been helpful, but having the full-time assistant position has been awesome. Sometimes we fill it with 2 GAs depending on how the applicant pool goes, but we do have a full-time position, and I have it full. It is filled now, and I've enjoyed that obviously very much.
That's great. Well, let's talk about your kind of style of coaching, team style of play, and then just that overall culture of the team. What's that look like?
So obviously, we could talk all day about culture. We clearly want players that, let me put it this way. At the beginning of the year, I put 3 questions up on the board, or sometimes I make a sticker out of it. And the questions are: do you love the game? Are you a competitive college soccer athlete? And then, can you put the team first? Those are the 3 questions. And we don't always talk about those at that first meeting, but those are the 3 things that we're trying to do. We obviously want our players to be committed to being the best student athletes they can be during their 4-year experience here. If they don't really love the game and love coming out to train every day, obviously they're going to have trouble in a college soccer environment where they're going to play more than they ever have, in their lives. And then putting the team first is important. A lot of players, I think the biggest shock to college soccer athletes is the idea that they may not play much, when they get to college. They're kind of starting over, earning their way. And if you have a mature team that's just kind of reloading every year and kind of, progressing with an experienced coach, or a coach that's at least been there long enough to have some recruiting cycles, it's going to be hard to make that starting lineup, as a first-year player. So, you've got to be patient, and you're often tested to just, again, your commitment to your development and your strengthening and becoming a smarter player, as well as being patient, putting the team first, and realizing that you're gonna have to fight your way up that depth chart pretty quickly. So I think it's important for coaches to be honest about that. Where are you on the depth chart? What do you need to do to get there? Who are the players that you're competing with, and what kinds of things do you need to do better than them? I think just having an open, honest, communication, process with the players is important. We make them come in for meetings, even when they don't want them, sometimes, to make things very clear to them about what's happening to them and explain why. And we hope that, I think that's been very helpful, of course, over the years.
No, well, Coach, I could talk to you for hours, but don't want to keep you here longer than I need to. So I always like to end these the same way, which is, what didn't we talk about? We covered a lot of ground, but is there any other areas you want to discuss or things you want to reiterate, whether it's recruiting, about Frostburg, about the team, or anything else? I'm going to leave you with the last word here.
I would just, encourage folks watching this video that are interested in recruiting to just ask the smart questions. How do you expect me to do here if I decide to come play for you? What do you really want? You want a prediction about what your competitive experience is going to be like. It's amazing to me how many recruiting visits I end and they don't ask that question. I said, are you curious about the recruiting class and our roster and how you might fit in, and what do you expect to happen to me when I come here? You got to ask those direct questions if you want answers. So be prepared when you talk to coaches and visit schools, and ask for the questions you really want answered.
No, it's tremendous advice, Coach. Really appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck in this recruiting cycle and getting ready to reload next season. And if you're at the coaches convention in Philly here in January, be sure to swing by and say hello. Would love to meet you in person.
I will, and hopefully we have a good World Cup story to tell then.
Let's hope. Let's hope. All right. Take care, Coach.
Thank you.